Hello. In a large urban residential area, due to the high population density, conflicts between neighbors over trivial matters are inevitable. Among them, conflicts caused by noise nuisances are particularly common. An incident caused by piano noise occurred in a residential community in Kanagawa Prefecture. What started as an ordinary dispute led to a heartbreaking tragedy. There was a man named Ohama Matsutsu, born in June 1928 in Kotoku, Tokyo. He was the second son in the family. His father ran a bookstore, and his mother was a housewife. During elementary school, Ohama had good academic performance and was once elected class monitor. However, due to his severe stuttering, he was often mocked by his classmates. What happens to a person in their youth often has a profound impact on their personality later in life. Since then, Ohama's personality changed significantly. He became insecure, avoided communicating with others, and preferred hiding in a corner alone. During his first year of junior high school, in one class, the teacher asked him to read an essay in front of the class. But out of extreme nervousness, he forgot the words in the textbook and stuttered badly, causing the whole class to burst into laughter. That made Ohama feel deeply ashamed. After this incident, he became even more insecure and developed a strong hatred for reading. In March 1945, when World War II ended, most young and middle-aged men were recruited. Ohama was assigned to work in a military factory in Yamanashi Prefecture. By 1946, at the age of 18, he started working at the National Railway Station. Over his 3 years of work, he became addicted to gambling and incurred a massive debt. To pay off the debt, he embezzled 39,000 yen from the company. Consequently, he was sentenced by the court to 12 months in prison with a 3-year probation. After being fired by the National Railway, Ohama returned to his hometown in Yamanashi Prefecture to live with his parents. Sometimes he farmed at home, other times he went out to do odd jobs. Over time, he grew tired of such tasks and chose to idle around. Seeing him doing nothing all day led his older brother to constantly scold him. Out of despair, Ohama left home to work in the Shinbashi area of Tokyo. Due to his demanding job, he developed tension headaches. These are headaches caused by extreme pressure, stress, or anger, etc. In 1959, 31-year-old Ohama was introduced by a matchmaker to become the son-in-law of a wealthy family. His wife had also been married once before. After their marriage, the wife still frequently contacted her ex-husband, which profoundly affected Ohama. He could accept the marriage, but could never accept being cuckolded, so he gathered all his courage to choose divorce. At the same time, he also received a sum of compensation money. After the divorce, Ohama went to work at a factory in Hachioji, Tokyo. During that time, he lived in the factory's dormitory. Every night in the room next door, the young men would often play music. This annoyed him greatly, but not wanting to offend his colleagues, he chose to silently endure it. After a long period, Ohama became overly sensitive to sounds. Even the chirping of birds or insects made him feel uncomfortable. Many married couples lived there, and their children were sometimes noisy or cried, which made Ohama miserable. Unable to stand the noise, he retaliated by screaming in the dormitory. His neighbors dubbed him the Grumpy Eccentric. In 1965, Ohama moved to Kanagawa Prefecture to work in an iron forge run by his relatives. Here, through an introduction, he met a woman, and the two got married. She cared deeply for Ohama, and knowing her husband was sensitive to sound, she always tried not to make noise when at home. After getting married, they both left Kanagawa Prefecture and went to work at a factory in Hachioji City, Tokyo. Ohama worked as a blast furnace worker, while his wife managed the dormitory. During this time, his sensitivity to noise reached a new level. Whenever his wife took a shower, the sound of trickling water irritated him so much that it led to domestic violence. There were many stray dogs near the dormitory. Ohama thought their barking was too loud, so he went out and killed them all. A group of students lived in Ohama's dormitory. At night, they liked to play mahjong in their rooms, often causing loud noises that prevented Ohama from sleeping all night. Consequently, conflicts arose between the two sides. Unable to endure it any longer, Ohama chose to resign and move elsewhere. In April 1970, Ohama and his wife moved together to an apartment complex in Hiratsuka City, Kanagawa Prefecture. This was a large residential community consisting of 50 apartment buildings with about 1,300 households. The apartment blocks here all had a 4-story structure. Ohama and his wife lived in building number 34, room 406 on the 4th floor. 2 months after the couple moved in, a new family moved into room 306 directly below them. They were a family of 4. The husband, named Okumura, was a 32-year-old ordinary office worker. His wife, Yaeko, was a 29-year-old housewife. They had 2 daughters, 8-year-old Mayumi and 4-year-old Yoko. At that time, it was customary for homeowners to send small gifts to their neighbors to build good relations after moving into a new home. Those who failed to do so were often considered impolite. The Okumura family did not greet their neighbors after moving into room 306. This gave Ohama a bad first impression of them. One of the reasons Ohama had moved to this community was because it was far from the urban area and relatively quiet. However, the soundproofing effectiveness of such residential buildings was generally poor. Whenever the Okumura family in room 306 opened and closed their windows or bathroom doors, the sound transmitted up to the 4th floor. And they opened and closed the doors many times a day, over 20 times daily. Ohama was highly sensitive to such sounds, which made him extremely uncomfortable. Just by being at home, he would close the windows and lay an extra thick mattress on the floor to block out the sounds echoing from downstairs. Unfortunately, Okumura, the owner of room 306 downstairs, loved carpentry. Every weekend he would take out his tools to carve and chisel. The protective measures taken by Ohama were completely insufficient against such loud noises. Unable to endure it, Ohama went down to their apartment and asked them to control the noise. At first the complaints were helpful, but after numerous times Okumura began to ignore them. Just as Ohama finished his petition and left before he even reached home, the noise would resume. Subsequently, Ohama started shouting in his apartment again. This also caused the neighbors to begin distancing themselves from him. Whenever Okumura's wife Yaeko met him, she acted like a stranger. This led him to believe that she had bad-mouthed him to the neighbors, worsening his relationship with them. The families in apartments 306 and 406 lived in such an environment for over 3 years. In 1973, society began paying attention to cultivating children's hobbies. This sparked a wave of piano learning, with many families purchasing pianos for their children. According to incomplete statistics, 1 in every 10 households in Japan bought a piano. Many families in Ohama's residential area were no exception. They also bought pianos for their kids. Because piano sounds are so loud, the community issued relevant regulations. Residents were only allowed to play during their free time and had to consciously close their windows to avoid disturbing other neighbors. However, not everyone strictly followed the rules. Occasionally, some households still let their children play the piano at night. The eldest daughter of the Okumura family was Mayumi. That year she was 7 years old and in the 2nd grade of elementary school. Their family bought a piano for 260,000 yen, so she could practice at home every afternoon after school. Ohama used to be a music lover, but since becoming sensitive to sound, he no longer enjoyed listening to music. When feeling overwhelmed by noise, he would wear headphones solely to isolate himself from outside sounds. But now he was tortured every day by the sound of the piano echoing from downstairs, causing him immense suffering. He went down many times to complain about the piano noise to the Okumura family. Yet as soon as he finished speaking and returned home, the playing would start again. Once when Ohama went to room 306 to complain, only little Mayumi was home. The young girl innocently replied, "Uncle, there is no living person who doesn't make a sound." That statement angered Ohama to the core. A thought sprouted in his mind, because if a person is alive, they will make a sound, but when they are dead, that sound will be gone. In a prolonged, noisy environment, Ohama became very irritable, and his violence towards his wife grew increasingly severe. Gradually, he developed paranoia. He suspected that because he had gone to the Okumura's home to complain, he had annoyed them. To exact revenge on him, they had deliberately bought a piano and practiced at home all day. Just like that, a year passed. Ohama quit his job at the company and lived on a monthly unemployment benefit of 7,000 yen. His wife could not bear such a miserable situation, so she divorced him and returned to her biological family. Ohama was in arrears on his rent for several months and was notified that if he didn't pay in full, they would evict him by the end of August. Under various pressures, Ohama's chronic migraines relapsed constantly. Symptoms like tinnitus and auditory hallucinations continuously occurred. All sorts of incessant noise from downstairs left him unable to eat or sleep well. He often went to the library to read or found a quiet place to fish. Sometimes he would complain to his friends that life was meaningless and that he wanted to jump into the sea to end it all. But his friends stopped him. In August 1974, Ohama went to the Okumura's home again to complain and saw a note pasted on their door that read, "The kids are sleeping, please be quiet." Upon seeing the note, he was furious. Their household continuously caused noise that affected others' rest. Yet now they dared to put up a notice asking others to be quiet so they could rest. He had never seen such selfish people. During this period, Ohama had suffered various psychological blows, such as divorce, unemployment, and being hounded for rent. The piano noise incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. This triggered Ohama's evil intentions. He went to a store, bought murder weapons, and observed the Okumura family's work and rest schedule, waiting for an opportunity to strike. On August 27, 1974, a resident simply referred to as A moved into room 305 next to the Okumura's home in 306. After moving in, Ms. A brought small gifts and visited every other resident in the entire building. She also went up to visit Ohama's home. Ohama took this opportunity to warn Ms. A the family in room 306 makes noise every day despite multiple complaints. They are very selfish, so you should stay away from them. At that time, Ohama had already harbored criminal intentions, but because he couldn't bear to act, he tried to endure it. However, an incident occurred that made him incredibly angry and triggered a tragedy. So, what happened on that day? Next, let's turn back time to August 28, 1974. August 28, 1974 was a Wednesday. The Okumura's eldest daughter Mayumi was on summer vacation and didn't have to go to school. During this time, she usually started practicing the piano at 9 a.m. every day. To avoid the noise, Ohama would often go to the library to read or go out looking for a job. Once 7:15 a.m. Ohama was still sleeping soundly at home. But right at that moment, the sound of the piano suddenly rang out from downstairs, waking him up instantly. He was so enraged that he thought, just yesterday, I badmouthed the Okamura family to the newly moved-in Ms. A. Yet today, the Okamuras were practicing the piano a full 2 hours earlier. Ms. A must have told their family, and they were certainly taking revenge on him by playing so early. Thinking of this, he lost his mind, unable to endure it any longer. 9 a.m. Ohama observed that Okamura downstairs had left home to go to work at the company. Only his wife Yaeko and their 2 daughters remained at home. Seeing this, Ohama grabbed his murder weapons and went to the door of room 306 on the 3rd floor. At that time, Yaeko was taking her youngest daughter Yoko downstairs to take out the trash, leaving the door unlocked, while the 8-year-old eldest daughter was diligently practicing the piano inside. Ohama entered the apartment and cut the phone line in the hallway to prevent anyone from calling the police. Then he stormed in, murdered Mayumi with a knife, and hid behind the room's partition. Not long after, 4-year-old Yoko entered the house alone. Seeing this, Ohama rushed out and attacked her. Shortly after, 33-year-old Yaeko also returned home, and Ohama lunged to murder her. In less than 5 minutes, Ohama had completed his crime. After cleaning up the scene, Ohama left a note explaining the reasons for murdering the 3 of them and fled room 306. Unexpectedly, he bumped into Ms. A, the new neighbor who had moved in yesterday. Terrified, Ohama frantically ran downstairs. Seeing the blood-stained Ohama rushing out, Ms. curiously entered the Okamura's home to check. Witnessing an unforgettable scene in her life, she quickly ran out and called the police. Upon receiving the report, the police rushed to the scene. At the scene, both Yaeko and her 2 daughters had passed away. Based on the testimony of the neighbor, Ms. A, the police immediately identified Ohama as the suspect, but his current whereabouts were unknown. The police then tracked down Ohama's family and friends. A friend mentioned that Ohama had once said he wanted to jump into the sea to end his life. The police immediately deployed over 200 officers to the surrounding waters to search, but found nothing. After committing the crime, Ohama rode a motorcycle to Mayayama Station. Because the bloodstains on his clothes would easily give him away, he stole someone else's clothes to change into and continued by bus to Fujisawa City. Afterwards, he boarded a train and traveled to Gunma Prefecture. He had no so-called escape plan and didn't know where he was going. Over the next few days, Ohama continuously wandered through Kanagawa Prefecture, Gunma Prefecture, and Tokyo. During that time, he discarded the murder weapons and secretly slept in cars parked along the street at night. By August 31st, 1974, Ohama could no longer endure such a life on the run. So he returned to the Hiratsuka City Police Station and turned himself in. He confessed to the entire process and his motives for the crime, while also leading the police to retrieve the discarded murder weapons. After being evaluated by experts, Ohama was diagnosed with a mental illness. On October 28, 1974, 2 months after the incident, the case was tried at the Odawara branch of the Kanagawa Prefectural Court. Whether the sounds from the Okamura's home constituted noise or not, the prosecutor presented a report on sound intensity. 1 decibel audible sound, 20 to 40 decibels whisper level sound, 30 to 40 decibels normal background noise, greater than 50 decibels sound that affects rest, greater than 60 decibels very loud noise. If humans are exposed to environments with loud noises for a long time, it will seriously affect their nervous, respiratory, and mental systems. The report presented by the prosecution showed that the average noise generated by playing the piano in the Okamura's home during the day was 44 decibels. With children playing around, the sound would be muffled, and the peak noise level when playing the piano at night was 44 decibels. This sound intensity fell within the standard range for environmental noise, and basically would not disrupt the normal rest of other residents. The prosecution presented testimony from the residents of room 206, directly below the Okumura's, who believed that the sounds from the Okumura's home were not bothersome and fell within a reasonable and acceptable range. Prosecutors stated that although the defendant, Ohama, suffered from mental illness, he murdered 3 people in a premeditated, cruel, and barbaric manner. It was an antisocial act driven by personal motives and deserved the death penalty. The defense then called a witness who was Ohama's ex-wife. In court, she testified, "The noise from the Okumura household was indeed very annoying. Their family opened and closed the windows over 20 times a day, disrupting others." The defense lawyer argued that when the prosecution measured the noise level, the piano was played by a police officer with years of playing experience. He was fully capable of controlling the volume, and the actual volume could have been much higher than the measured noise level. The defendant, Ohama, showed no remorse and even told the judge, "I want to be sentenced to death." On October 20th, 1975, after a year of trial, the presiding judge concluded that defendant Ohama had a blatant disregard for others, mercilessly taking 3 lives without hesitation. His extremely barbaric methods had a terrible impact on society, and he showed no remorse in court for his crimes. The court convicted Ohama of premeditated murder and other charges, sentencing him to death. After the verdict was announced, Ohama didn't want to appeal. However, his defense attorney insisted on the appeal process and persuaded Ohama to sign the appeal petition. The Japan Noise Victims Association expressed deep sympathy for Ohama. They voluntarily submitted petitions, hoping the court would commute Ohama's sentence. In May 1976, the second trial was held at the Tokyo High Court. The presiding judge ordered a reassessment of Ohama's mental state. Psychiatrists conducted more than 10 evaluations and concluded the defendant Ohama was suffering from a delusional disorder at the time of the crime. Delusional disorder is a severe mental illness in which patients believe their thoughts are real and cannot be restrained or rationalized despite having no factual basis. He suffered from grandiose delusions, persecutory delusions, and delusions of reference. Based on this authoritative psychiatric evaluation report, the court could commute his death sentence or even acquit him. On October 5, 1976, Ohama firmly withdrew his appeal without consulting his defense attorney. He stated, "If I escape the death penalty or receive life imprisonment, life would be meaningless. I feel tired of living due to my sensitivity to noise and insomnia. Prison life would make me suicidal, so the death penalty would be the best outcome. Even if the psychiatric evaluation shows I am abnormal and could be exempt from punishment, that would mean spending my entire life in a mental hospital. Therefore, I hope to be sentenced to death as soon as possible." Records showed that during his detention, Ohama repeatedly complained about noise from the neighboring cell. The defense attorney petitioned the court, arguing that the withdrawal of the appeal was done while defendant Ohama was mentally unstable, thus rendering it invalid. The presiding judge stated, even if defendant Ohama escapes the death penalty, he could not bear the agony of long-term imprisonment due to his sensitivity to noise and insomnia. Not only that he is so fed up with this kind of life that he wants to die to be set free, I think the death penalty would be used to fulfill his wish. Although somewhat reluctant, the defendant possesses litigation capacity and has his own awareness of death, which is legally valid. The court ultimately upheld the death sentence, and the case finally came to a close. In Japan, crimes related to noise also emerged one after another. In October of the same year, a 24-year-old man named Tetsuo Watanabe lived in Kawasaki City, Kanagawa Prefecture. He kept a pet dog, and its barking bothered the neighbors. Later, a 35-year-old female bar owner named Masako Koseki, unable to sleep, approached Tetsuo to complain and said, according to the building's policy, residents are not allowed to let their pets disturb other residents. The two then started arguing. Furious, Masako threw the dog from the 8th floor to the ground, resulting in the dog's death. Both parties subsequently went to the police station, and Masako was required to pay 170,000 yen in compensation. But the incident was far from over. One night, while Tetsuo and his wife were eating at a snack shop, they saw the shop owner had a very cute dog. This reminded him of his own little dog. After returning to the apartment, he and his wife broke into Masako's home and killed her with a knife. During interrogation, Tetsuo stated he loved his pet dog very much, treating it as if it were his own biological child. Faced with an increasing number of crimes caused by noise, Japan enacted relevant laws. For example, singing karaoke or making loud noises in residential areas was made illegal. To prevent similar noise disputes from recurring, the Japanese piano industry also underwent major changes. Some traditional acoustic pianos were replaced by digital ones, allowing players to plug in headphones while playing so as not to disturb others. To this day, Ohama is 95 years old and is still being held in a Tokyo prison, concurrently becoming the oldest death row inmate in Japan. Today's video ends here. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.